Okay, thanks everyone for joining us. This again is Shannon with TRC Energy Services, and we implement PG&E's multifamily programs, being the retrofit program, which is called the Multifamily Upgrade Program, and the new construction program, which is called California Multifamily New Homes. We'll be discussing these programs today, as well as other trends in the multifamily sector. And we have two great presenters who will be speaking on these topics. So Scott Kessler, who manages California Multifamily New Homes, and Matthew Rolnick, who works on our team doing outreach and recruitment. So probably a lot of you have spoken with both of them before. I'm just going to start with a brief summary of kind of how these webinars work, and then we'll launch into the content for the rest of the day, or the rest of the hour. Next slide. Looks like it hasn't advanced yet. If you can click it. And just while we're waiting for that to load, I'll let you guys know that we are recording this presentation. Yeah, so it looks like the slide advanced. We're recording this presentation. We'll be posting it to YouTube and sharing the link with everybody either today or tomorrow. And we'll also be putting the slide deck up on our website, so you'll be able to access it later. Let's see. I forget if there's a slide about how to enter questions, but I'll just address that right now. So there's not. Okay. So we'll be taking questions throughout the webinar. So you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen is a little box where you can enter questions. And feel free to type your questions in at any time, and we'll take them. Probably as there start to be a few, we'll take a break to answer them. We should have some extra time at the end of the presentation to answer questions. So we're definitely interested in getting your feedback and hearing your thoughts and concerns. We'll also have a survey at the end of the webinar. So we do these on a few of our presentations, just to solicit your feedback. And we do these webinars for you guys, and so we really want them to be valuable and interesting to you. So please take a few minutes to fill that out. So I'm going to hand it over to, I believe, Matthew, who is going to carry on the rest of the presentation along with Scott. So Matthew, your turn.
Hi, my name is Matthew Rolnick, and I work on the program with Scott and Shannon, and we have a few others. All of these programs, Scott, are sponsored by PG&E. These programs are paid for by ratepayer-sponsored incentives, Scott, did you want to jump in?
I'll just say that TRC is a consultant hired by PG&E, and there's no cost to any of the participants in the program for TRC services. And as Matthew mentioned, all funding flows from the ratepayers through the CPUC to PG&E.
And we work for TRC, which is a consulting firm, and we provide everything from program implementation to evaluation. We have a particular expertise in deep expertise in multifamily energy efficiency programs. And so one of the things that's great about working with us is we can actually help you with navigating how to take advantage of all of the different PG&E programs that you might be eligible for. Today what we're going to be talking about is some of the benefits and trends in energy efficiency, how being energy efficient helps you with improving your bottom line, and how we can help you do that. Also, we wanted to share with you a little bit about energy codes. Some of you may be more familiar with them than others, and because the energy codes are accelerating so rapidly right now, we feel like this is something that's actually going to be a significant cost driver as you guys are looking at doing new developments. We'll be talking a little bit about the history of energy codes, and then how you can integrate energy efficiency, the sort of things that we're finding people are doing to beat code and be code ready for the next cycle. And then Scott will talk to you a little bit more about in more detail about the programs and how they work. So the One of the programs is the Multifamily New Home Construction Program, and we really try to get people to incorporate energy efficiency as early into their designs for either renovations or new construction, because the more you think about it at the start, the less of a cost differential it'll have. It will also help you with developing a competitive edge. Now, a lot of times people say, how's energy efficiency going to help me with developing a competitive edge? And I think the first place that I always like to start is by talking about millennials, as well as the rental market in general. A lot of people are preferring to be buying sustainable brands. There have been Nielsen surveys, did a really interesting survey that was showing that millennials prefer and will pay a premium for sustainability. The majority of consumers prefer to purchase from a socially responsible company, and that sustainable brands are experiencing faster growth. Another interesting survey that I had seen when I was doing this research was that 93% of Americans have done something to conserve energy in the last 2 years. So this is something that's hitting in the consumer's mind and helping them to get to be more energy efficient and be more sustainable. That will help them to be a part of your customer family. But more than just the feel-good marketing side of it as well, it will actually help to affect your bottom line. There are some developers that I have talked with and have come across in my research are doing some really interesting approaches to how energy efficiency is helping to boost their bottom line. So I wanted to share some of that with you. I wanted to just imagine, for mathematics' sake, that you're looking at a 100-unit building, because 100 is a nice round number. And first of all, energy efficiency makes your apartments much more comfortable. There's one company that I spoke with that uses the multifamily upgrade program specifically because they buy Class C buildings and reposition them to Class A. And as part of their repositioning, they use energy efficiency when they're doing their gut rehabs, because they realized that if you make your building tight and you make your building well insulated, it stops the sound from moving. Your tenants don't have to smell their neighbors. If you've got a properly ventilated building with energy efficiency built, there's less airflow between apartment units, and it makes it for a more comfortable place for your tenants. So that's one place that you can get increased rents, is just from the premium of having a really comfortable building. The other place where we're finding is that renters compare notes on how much they're paying for their utilities. So even if they don't know up front how much their utilities are going to cost, within a short time of living there, they will find out how much they're paying and how much their friends are paying. And with more developers building more energy efficient buildings, especially the new ones, that utility bill that people are going to be comparing themselves against is going to be lower. So if you are looking, for example, at a utility bill for an average 2-bedroom apartment of about $120 for your utilities, if you were looking at a way of being able to cut that in half, that would give you $60 after efficiency. So that gives you $60 to play. One developer that I talked with uses that differential as part of his financials when he's putting this together, because he realizes that if the tenants are paying a little bit less in utilities, then they're able to go ahead and he can capture part of that $60 savings that the tenants are having. And so if he's able to just get the extra $30 a month as additional rent, that boosts his bottom line by $36,000 a year. The other thing that we were talking about is reduced vacancy. So vacancy is the bane of existence for all apartment owners and managers. And so one of the things you can do is make your apartments more comfortable and happy places for people to be, so that they are not even thinking about moving. So that's one way to reduce the vacancy. The other is by studies have shown that more energy efficient apartments do tend to have lower vacancy because of their tenants not moving a lot. So again, in this one here, if we were to look at an example where you are moving your vacancy from 7.5 to 6, from 6.5 to 5.5% vacancy, which is about what the average vacancies are in California, you can actually gain an extra $15,000 a year just by reducing your vacancies, that small increment on your building. And then you can get even further savings by not having to pay for the additional advertising and effort of leasing in your new tenants. The next thing I wanted to talk with you about is the recent history of energy codes. Now, California has always been a leader. The CEC started in '75. In '78, there was a legislative mandate to increase the level of insulation in buildings just to be able to cope with the growth and ensure that there was sufficient gas supply. There have been a number of iterations between '78 and now, but the next big iteration that I wanted to talk to you about is 2008. In 2008, there was a legislative mandate which required looking at energy efficiency as first resource. That's wonk speak for saying that we're going to use energy efficiency instead of building more generating power plants. And part of the result of that is that the building code was set up to try to bring us to zero net energy on multifamily buildings by 2020. And for many of you, I'm sure this is nothing new. But what it means is that each increasing cycle of code is going to be much more stringent. So many people, many of you have actually participated in the 2008 program, and you were very easily able to get above 20 to 30% of code and qualify. Our 2013 program requires being 15% above code, and sometimes it's a little harder to get to because the 2013 code is so much more stringent than the 2008 code. And there are no surprises about where we're going to. In 2016, we're looking at having a code that's going to be another 15 to 20% more stringent than the 2013 code. And so any projects that you have which will be getting permitted in 2017, which is not that far away, will need to be built to be code ready for 2016. And then 2020, all buildings, all multifamily buildings, the goal is to have them be zero net energy, which means that there will be enough energy efficiency measures in place and enough on-site power generation from various sources that the building will use the grid, but it will be generating most of its own energy. And this is a really rapid amount of change in code for a lot of people. So one of the things that's great about our program is that as you're trying to get ahead of where the code is going to be, our programs allow you to be able to get incentives, and we also provide technical support. So as you're trying to kind of cope with these changes, we're able to help provide a little support along the way. One of the questions that comes up is how does the energy efficiency benefit your projects, and what should be prioritized? So one of the things I wanted to just share with you some of the different measures that we're seeing that are exceeding 2013 Title 24, what they're using for their measures. So high efficiency air conditioning is one of them. On the left-hand side here, you can see that there's a person that's installing blown insulation. So high insulation, very tight building envelopes are important. And also high efficiency equipment, boilers, hot water heaters, HVAC systems. When you are going through and doing your energy model, one of the things you can do to improve your performance on the energy model is to take certain additional HERS tests. So many of you are already hiring HERS raters as part of code compliance or as part of other things that you're doing. So one of the things that our program will do is help you with really taking advantage of the fact that you've got these people on site already, and we'll give you some incentive money to help you do that better. And a lot of times people say, well, what do I need a HERS tester for anyways? My contractors are good, and I don't need to worry about anything. And what the HERS verification does is it kind of lets you know that everything is fine and that they actually are doing what they said. I always like to use the Ronald Reagan quote of trust but verify. So if you look on this picture here, for example, you have, you're looking at an insulated wall. And these pictures come from different inspections that we've done. And this insulation on the outside looks really quite good. But when you look at it a little bit closer, you can see that this insulation here, this fiberglass batting, is really jammed into the space there. And there are some small gaps along the sides. When you have these types of compressions, it really affects the value of what you paid for and diminishes the R value tremendously. Again, when you're doing, so one of the tests within the HERS verification is the quality insulation installation, and that gives you credit to help boost your score. And the reason is because you'll be able to find other places where there are gaps in the insulation, so you can have your contractor fix those. And people often say, okay, well, these are really small examples, and it's true, these ones are not. I've seen much worse insulation myself. But all of these pictures are from live sites, and what we're trying to help you avoid is finding out that something like this is behind your walls, how creative sometimes the on-site people can get when they're trying to figure out how they're going to close in the window spaces. In this case here, the window was cut too large for the window that they had, so they just threw a whole bunch of 2x4s in, and you can imagine there's a lot of energy that's flowing through there, and you're not getting the insulation that you paid for. For this next section, I'm going to be handing the pointer over to my friend Scott Kessler, who's going to talk to you more about the specifics on the multifamily upgrade program and the California multifamily new homes. Do we have any questions before we move on from this section?
Let me look, and maybe we'll give folks a minute to enter questions if they have any, or comments, like maybe you've seen examples where HERS testing has been really valuable. Let's see. So I don't see any yet. I think we'll probably see some coming in the next minute or so, but probably we can move on. Oh, okay. We can move on to the next.
Scott, so if you want to start presenting, Scott, I'll keep everything moving along.
We have one question that just came in. Maybe we can pause to take it. So Scott and Matthew, I'll let you duke it out over who should take this. So this is from a developer that's new to California. Maybe just can you elaborate a little bit more with a quick summary of what HERS verification is, and maybe whether it's different at all from what folks might be doing in other parts of the country? So again, this is really relevant to, especially to new construction, because the 2013 code is requires HERS testing for low-rise projects. But
I can jump in and field that one, Shannon. So this is Scott Kessler. So HERS has a different meaning in the rest of the country than in California. The definitions are actually pretty similar, but across the rest of the country, a HERS rating index is something that's established by a group called ResNet. And here in California, we have a sort of different index that is covered by the California Energy Commission. So it gets pretty confusing, and I would understand why someone might have that question. In short, HERS testing is something that can be done to improve the building's both actual performance, modeled energy performance. So as Matthew was talking about earlier, there are HERS tests that a developer can hire a HERS rater to do. And when you signal on forms to the California Energy Commission and to any building commissions you might be submitting forms to, that you are taking these HERS tests, you actually get compliance credit for it. So, one of the ones Matthew just mentioned, quality insulation installation, which is a bit of a tough one to say, you actually get additional credit, more or less proving that the insulation that you've purchased is the level at which it was installed. Because historically we have seen that a lot of projects will purchase really great insulation, but if it's not installed properly, there's enough loss there that really a lot of that material isn't in use. So, if you have an R19 wall, but it's poorly installed, you can have the effect of having an R10 wall, or just as a, pretty back-of-the-hand example. So that's sort of a short summary of HERS. If you have further questions about it, I would definitely encourage you to send us an email afterwards, just because we can talk about this in more detail. but just for the sake of brevity, I'll probably cut myself off there. But feel free to follow up if you have any additional questions.
Thanks, Scott. I think that was a great summary, and we have a few more questions. So one is about, so what if in the case of that project with the wood framing replacing the instant, what would we do in a situation where we noticed a major failure like that? What would be the repercussions of doing an installation job like that from a program perspective, I guess?
Well, from a program perspective, I mean, there are sort of two options, you know, because the incentives we're giving to a project have to be based off of actual energy savings. So option one, which is greatly preferable, is that the HERS rater goes out, they notice this, and that, you know, the developer and its contractors remedy the situation, and therefore the program doesn't actually have to do anything because the savings achieved are equal to the savings modeled. The second scenario, which obviously is less preferable for all parties, is that we, in theory, could end up reducing the incentive because there's not as much energy savings achieved. And that would be something we would discuss with the developer in advance. You know, obviously, it is not the preferred route for any of us. But yes, there is the possibility that in a program like this, if you enroll at a high level of savings and do not achieve that, your incentive would be modified accordingly.
And I just want to, on that note also, in the case where you saw the 2x4 framing in the window, you probably didn't, that probably is not the way it was designed. And so if your contractors are doing something that extreme, you may actually want to force them to look at how they're doing their work for you. So we always kind of try to look at it as a value add so that you know what your contractors are doing in the field so that you're getting what you paid for.
Great. So we have a few questions. I'm just gonna address them really quickly, and then we'll move on. So there's a question about what kind of certifications our programs require of raters, and actually we also have required certifications of energy consultants too. I don't think this presentation goes into that so much, but I'm just going to say for new construction projects, we do require that a rater have either a residential or non-residential HERS certification, and energy consultants have to be certified energy plans examiners. We'll be transitioning to certified, energy advisor, CEA, shortly, probably in the next year or so. So that's new construction. And then for retrofit, there's various combinations of certifications. So I'll probably direct you to reference the website, which we'll provide the link for. It really depends on the scope of work that what certifications we require. We have another question about someone that's looking for a list of HERS raters throughout California. So we can send that link in our follow-up email. So the answer is yes. There's a list where you can find various HERS raters in California. And then I liked this last comment, and then we'll move on. So just to clarify, another benefit from having a HERS rater is because the rater is a third party, there's no conflict of interest, hopefully, between the builder and contractor, so it's an unbiased opinion. So I think we'll end with that, and then I'll turn it back over to Scott.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Shannon. So we've talked about some of the benefits of energy efficiency in general, and now we're going to go through our new construction and our retrofit programs to show you what resources PG&E has available for you right now. These programs are not comprehensive of all of PG&E's energy efficiency incentive programs. So if you are looking, the ones we're talking about today are whole building programs. If you're looking to simply do a singular measure, one piece of equipment, there are other programs that we can refer you to. So just one disclaimer I have to get out of the way here is that funding is limited and set by the California Public Utility Commission. I don't want to scare anyone here because we are not forecasting any funding shortfalls, and we anticipate both programs to continue through 2016. but I just want everyone to be aware in advance that, that is really the regulatory body that oversees things, and so we just have to respond whenever they come out with a new order. So we keep our customers very up to speed on what's going on there, and we don't anticipate any changes in the near future. So first I'm going to talk about the multifamily upgrade program, which is the retrofit program. This program is looking at whole building savings, so identifying a scope of work to an existing building and looking to achieve energy savings compared to what that building used previously. This applies to both the in-unit and the common area upgrades. And as Shannon mentioned earlier, there are some requirements as to the HERS rater and other consultants that will be used in the process. We'll be sending the link out afterwards. So here is a map that just shows you what PG&E's electric service territory is. If you are within PG&E's gas and or electric service territory, you are eligible for this program. So, there's a gap around Sacramento where SMUD has their electric service utility. Projects in that projects in those areas are still eligible. You would just only be eligible for a gas incentive for PG&E. The electric side of things would have to come from SMUD. In order to participate in the program, the definition we use for multifamily here is 5 or more attached units, and it's really any type of multifamily. As long as it's being permitted as a multifamily building, we will treat it as such. The minimum amount of savings that have to be achieved as compared to the previous year's baseline is 10%, and we'll go over how the incentives are impacted by that shortly. And just to mention that if, again, you fall into that weird category where PG&E only provides a single utility to you, whether it's electric or gas, we will coordinate with the other utility that provides your other service to ensure that things are streamlined for you, and that potentially our review of the model and the plan sets will suffice for their own. Most of the time, that is not a problem. So along with that 10%, you need doing measures from 2 of the following 4 categories: building shell, heating and cooling, domestic hot water, or lighting and appliances. One thing that I like to point out is that that means you cannot just do windows. That is, obviously a very popular project. It helps increase asset value while also improving energy performance, but we need to have folks doing a whole building approach, so more than just windows to enroll in the program. Now to the incentives for the program, they start at a minimum of $600 per unit, so that's if you achieve 10% compared to your previous year's energy performance, and then incentives escalate as your percent difference increases. Once you reach 25%, things increase at a quicker rate, so they max out at $2,250 per unit. So somewhere in that range is more or less where you would anticipate falling. May help calculating what your potential incentive might be. We can obviously help you out with that as well. So
Scott, I'm going to chime in really quick just to add to that incentive slide. Yep. There's also an incentive to offset the cost of having a rater do the assessment. So every project that comes through the program has to hire a rater, and I actually am getting a lot of questions about upgrade or retrofit project certificates. So we'll send out, there's a whole checklist for folks who are interested in being raters. You can see if you meet the requirements. So it's either in, it depends on if you're working on high-rise or low-rise projects, but there's a BPI option or a HERS 2 option. So I'll send out that information about the certificates. And then the assessment incentive starts at $100 per unit. I'd need to double check if there's, I think it's up to 200 units. I will confirm that in the email. And then after a project meets that 25% threshold, there's a bonus $25 per unit. So that's a lot of numbers, just so you guys are aware that there's an extra incentive for having a rater. So I'll let you continue, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. So now we're going to talk about the California Multifamily New Homes Program, which is the new construction complement to the Multifamily Upgrade Program. And here, I just really want to stress the fact that the program's offering both cash incentives as well as design assistance. So not only, are we hopefully handing you a check at the end of the day, but we are hopefully influencing your project and helping you make decisions. So if you are in the midst of making an energy decision, we can help you do so, and we will, happily, come in on any design charrette meetings or anything like that. We also do educational opportunities such as this webinar that you are listening to here. So just to give you guys a glimpse of what some of our high-performing projects look like. So we have, this is for low-rise units here, but we sort of divided up into baseline program entry, higher performing projects, and highest performing projects. So you'll see here that the HVAC measures between the baseline and the higher performing projects don't really change, but at the highest level, we're seeing projects with about an 18 SEER come in, some condensing boilers, all sorts of increased efficiencies compared to what we saw in the past. Same thing on the domestic hot water side. We are now seeing things up above 95% efficiency, which is really great because that's getting pretty close to your theoretical limit there. And installations are increasing. HERS verification, so there's some that are required by code, and then if you take additional tests, like I mentioned earlier, you would get additional savings. We're seeing more and more projects with solar thermal, as that is not required by 2013 code, but you either have to have a very high efficiency hot water system or solar thermal. So this is just a glimpse at what types of projects we're seeing. So these are two recently completed projects to give you an idea of what sort of incentives they saw and what % above 2008 Title 24 this was. These are both some pretty impressive projects that came through. One was 24 units, and the other was 3 separate buildings with 109 units, and that one saw an incentive of over $80,000. So in order to participate in CMFNH, you'll see a lot of similarities to the upgrade program, but some differences. So one of the differences is that multifamily is considered 3 or more attached units. The eligibility in terms of service territory is the same. So you either have to be in PG&E's electric or gas service territory, and we will collaborate with any other utilities providing energy. In order to participate in the program, projects have to be exceeding 2013 Title 24 by at least 15%, and construction has to be complete within 3 years. We will grant extensions if necessary, but on the whole, we try and keep things within a 3-year time period. Again, we are looking at affordable market rate, high-rise, low-rise, apartments, condos, townhomes, any type of multifamily we are happy to look at. And so here are the incentives for the program. You'll see they're a little bit lower than the upgrade program. This is just because what we're trying to pay for is the incremental cost of going to the efficient option, as opposed to the upgrade program where they are trying to provide enough incentive to convince a customer to take on a project. So the low-rise incentives are structured pretty similarly to what we saw with upgrade, where when you start at a score of 84, the incentives increase incrementally, and then at 75 they increase at a greater rate. For high-rise, the incentives are different. It's just $150 for 15% above code to net 29% above code, and if you reach 30% above code, it's $400 per unit. You can also enroll in low-rise meeting 15% better than 2013 standards, but we sort of assume that should be a score of 84 if you did not achieve that. One more thing I just want to point out here is that we have an incentive both to the energy consultant, which is $50 a unit, to compensate them for their time in producing the energy model, and then we have a HERS rater incentive of $60 per unit. So that's meant to offset, really, like Shannon mentioned before, we do need to have a HERS rater go and inspect these measures. That time should more or less be free to the developer who participates in the program. And with all these incentives combined, we like to think of it as our starting point is $185 per unit. So that's at $60, $50, and the $75 all combined. So working from there is about what we think is the approximate incentive for the program. So how do you participate in either of these programs? They really have a very similar process. The first step is just to submit an interest form. This just tells us some base information of the project, some contact info, and we'll reach out to you and really take care of the rest. But once you have submitted that interest form, we will review it with you, and then eventually that will result in a formal application. The difference is that along with a formal application, you have to submit a W-9, you have to submit an architectural plan set, and an energy model. And then on the retrofit side, prior to moving forward, we would need a rater to assess the property to make sure the project hasn't gone forward already. And once we've formally enrolled the application, we would reserve funding, and then you can go ahead and just begin construction. And we will check in with you during the construction process to make sure things are moving along smoothly or make any adjustments we might need to, depending on if your schedule moves up or slows down.
Scott, can you talk about when is the best time that, I guess in the design schedule or development schedule, that a project should get in touch with us?
Thank you, Shannon. So it's really best, we like to say that the earlier a project begins a conversation with us, the better, because energy can become more of a discussion point early on. You can set expectations better with energy consultants and HERS raters. We're happy to give advice on how to do so. But around the point at which we like to formally enroll projects is around the 50% construction document completion stage, just because around there, enough of the building is set that we can really begin to see what its potential energy performance is going to be, but not so much of it is complete that we still can't influence the project and encourage it to aim for greater efficiencies. So right around the 50% CD phase is where we're talking. And at the multifamily, for the retrofit program, we really would say as early as possible, just because those projects tend to move a lot faster. So the earlier, the better, definitely for retrofit. So if you're looking to get in contact with the programs, I would suggest you first check out the website. You can fill out project interest forms at either one of those, or you can reach out to any of the contact information you have from today's webinar. It should be right there on your screen. You'll see both emails for myself and Matthew, as well as emails for the program, or a phone number that you can reach out to in order to get more information. And we included in what we send as a follow-up to this webinar. So any of those forms of communication, and we'll be happy to help you get enrolled.
Great, and just so everyone knows, both of those program emails come to me, Shannon. So if you, really the interest form is just saying, hey, I want to know more about these programs. Please get in touch with me to help me figure out if I'm eligible. So that's what that conversation is. I think we're probably ready to move into questions unless you have anything else you wanted to say, Scott.
Nope, that sounds good to me.
Okay, we've got a good number of questions. I'll reiterate, yes, we will be distributing the slide deck as a PDF to everyone attending this webinar. We'll post it on our website along with the recording, which we will post on YouTube. So we will email you those links in the next, hopefully the next 24 hours. Okay, so first question, Scott, can you just summarize again? I know you touched on it, but what is the nature of, how can projects expect to interact with TRC as opposed to PG&E? What is that? Does that make sense? What is that? How? Yeah.
I can talk to that. Basically, we handle all communications with projects on behalf of PG&E. So rarely, if ever, do individual projects end up speaking with the PG&E program manager. They are certainly welcome to if an issue arises, and PG&E is always hoping to hear more from their customers. But in a standard process, you would expect to be primarily interacting with TRC staff. And we would, we basically move the process along on your behalf. So not only will we be reaching out to you to do status updates, but we also reach out to PG&E to make sure that nothing's being held up on their end as well. I think that answers the question there, Shannon.
I do. And in terms of incentive payments, the programs are run a little bit differently. You guys don't really need to worry about it, but just so it's clear, TRC cuts checks for California multifamily new homes directly, and PG&E cuts checks directly for multifamily upgrade program. Okay. Here's a good question. So, Scott, how do we work with different members of the design team in terms of, I guess, learning about new projects, determining if they're eligible, and then processing applications? Can any member of the design team participate in any of those steps?
Yes, so we are open to working with any member of the design team. We primarily think of the developer as the client. However, in a lot of situations, the developer would prefer us to work with the energy consultant, so we work primarily with them. In fewer scenarios, but in some, they want us working with the architect as the prime, or maybe there's a GC on the project who we are working with. So any of those scenarios works for us. And I would say as to who on the design team, we eventually end up speaking with the energy consultant almost no matter what, just because it reduces middlemen. But yeah, we are happy to make any scenario work that the developer wants to have.
And Scott was worried that we would hear the jazz band in the background of his office, but I didn't hear that, but I did just hear your sirens. So here's a question about eligibility. This is a multifamily upgrade question I think I will take. So we do have that 5 attached units requirement for multifamily upgrade program. However, we have run into a lot of, say, fourplexes, duplexes that are part of a complex. So I'm going to take. So this particular person is wondering about an 80 unit total project made of 40 duplexes. So I'll contact that person directly to discuss that. So projects that don't quite fit in the eligibility requirements, we might refer them to the single family program based on whether we think the incentives would be more beneficial in that case. And if the single-family program has higher incentives, but the kind of paperwork is a little bit more involved, so it's kind of sometimes up to the owner to decide what route they want to go. So another program question about Bay Ren. So for those who don't know, there's a program called, we're a program through the Association of Bay Area Governments. So this is all of the cities basically surrounding the Bay. They run another program for retrofit projects called Bay Ren, or sometimes people are calling it Bambi. So it's another program for projects that are doing retrofits. The difference between Bay Ren and the multifamily upgrade is that multifamily upgrade program is for projects that are considering a more involved scope of work. So multifamily upgrade program participants have to do at least 2 upgrades, resulting in 10% savings over existing conditions. And then for projects that take on more advanced scope of work, they can earn higher incentives. The Bay Ren program also requires that projects meet 10%, but it's a flat incentive. I can't remember the exact number right now, but we will usually refer projects to Bay Ren if they don't quite meet the requirements for multifamily upgrade, but are doing at least a few upgrades. And then there's another option for projects that are just doing 1 upgrade. If you're not sure and you want to talk to us about some of the things that you're considering, just email us and we can talk about the specific questions. And we're always happy to refer folks to the most appropriate programs. You guys don't have to do a lot of digging. Okay, I'm going to look at some more questions. Okay. So someone wondering about CEA or CEPE requirements in the California Multifamily New Homes Program. So Scott, I think I'll let you take this question. So can you talk about how what we would require in a situation where the person who originally did the energy models, perhaps that person wasn't a CEPE? What would be that project's next step in terms of getting a CEPE, a Certified Energy Plans Examiner, to approve their models?
So this sounds like the scenario where we'd probably need to find out more about it. We've had, a number of one-off situations where, an energy model starts, but then the modeler leaves and they have to bring on a new firm, or, situations like this where it turns out the person who did it didn't have the proper qualifications. So, we'd probably look into what other qualifications do they have and whether or not, we would accept the existing model, whether or not we need someone to redo it. Yeah, I can't really say based on the information we have here, but would definitely encourage that person to follow up with us after and we can talk about it.
Great. So construction schedule question, Matthew, I'm going to give it to you. If a project is almost ready to start construction, can it qualify? And I'm not sure if this is about multifamily upgrade or California multifamily new homes, but I'll let you. Do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. And Scott, you'll smack me if I get this one wrong. But so if you're starting construction, we can still take a look at it. The options of what we are able to help you with are less at that point because changes start becoming more expensive. But if you're at the beginning of the construction, it's great. We have to be able to have enough time to review the models and get an inspection done before before the drywall starts going up. So if you have projects, because you're just learning about this now and you guys are just in construction, reach out to us and we'll see how we can help you with that. And if you're thinking of projects, don't wait until you're in construction. Just reach out to us now. Another advantage of reaching out to us now is we all know that these have long time spans, and so if you think that you're going to be finishing construction 3 years from now, if you call us in 2017, you will need to have permitted to 2016 code, which means that you'll have to create another set of models, and you may or may not be compliant for eligible.
That's the worst.
Yeah, so there's a lot of advantages to starting early with us, and yeah, so that's it.
So I'm just looking at the clock. It's 12:48. We said we would technically end at 12:45. So I'm going to just say a few final words for folks who need to sign off now. Otherwise, we'll stay on, I think, to answer questions for a few more people. So if you have questions, you can still enter them. I'm going to confirm, yes, we'll post all of the resources that we've mentioned during this presentation. We'll share those with you guys during an email or in an email follow-up. And also remind you that when you close out of the webinar, a survey will pop up asking for feedback about the presentation. So please fill that out. It's 7 questions, so it shouldn't take very long. Okay, so some more questions. So Scott, is there any difference between how we interact with affordable projects versus market rate projects?
Nope. No difference. Same program, same incentives. The only thing I would mention is that if you are an affordable project and you are going for TCAT credits, very often the requirements for those credits align with our own program. So even if you weren't thinking about it, maybe think twice because you might be complying without even realizing it.
Okay, so this is a question. I think this is a retrofit question asking about how you can claim incentives for doing if you're just doing one upgrade. So this particular question is about lighting. So if you are just doing one upgrade, still contact us at that multifamily upgrade email that you see here. We'll probably refer the project to a program run by PG&E called the Multifamily Energy Efficiency Rebate Program, and they do have incentives for lighting. So yeah, just get in touch with us and we can put you in touch with the right folks. So Scott or Matthew, I've got a question about the 2016 code. So this is a question, when do we think the 2016 code will go into effect? And maybe you can just talk really briefly about what are some of the major changes. I think maybe folks would be interested to hear that.
So sort of a crystal ball question here. When will 2016 code go into effect? Scheduled for January 1st, 2017. Based on historical precedent, we have seen those not go into effect on their anticipated day. So I'm definitely not promising that, but I do not have any other information other than the fact that they should go into effect on January 1st, 2017. So I will, we will keep you updated if you're signed up to our webinar and our email list. That's definitely something that we keep our participants informed of. As for big changes, I have to say I don't know as much about 2016 yet. One big change I do know is that all lighting will have to be high efficacy. So usually that just means all CFL or LED. Right now it's currently structured so that 50% of lighting can be high efficacy. It varies depending on the scenario, but that's roughly the rule. And so a lot of people have been getting away with that, but that's going to tighten up a lot in 2016. Also, lighting controls will be required on all fixtures. If you want more information, though, about those potential changes, we can send you the link to the proposed 2016 code, as well as give you some feedback from some of our own internal experts who are actually working on developing that code right now.
Thank you, Scott. So I've got a question about solar photovoltaic systems for the program, so I'll answer that quickly. Neither program provides incentives for solar photovoltaic systems. California Multifamily New Homes does provide incentives for solar thermal systems, only if that project isn't also participating in the California Solar Initiative solar thermal program. And actually, we have a webinar coming up on August 12th, so is that in 2 weeks? On we're actually we have invited the manager of the CSI program to come and talk with our participants about solar thermal, both the technologies and also how to participate in that program. We'll send out the information for that webinar in our follow-up email. Okay, I've got a question about timelines for participating in the upgrade program. I realized we didn't talk about that. So right now the upgrade program operates on an annual cycle. So projects participating this year have to complete by the end of the year. We're able to make some exceptions, but you'd need to talk to us directly about a specific project. If you have a project that's starting construction next year, we haven't yet released any information about a program in 2016, but we do want to hear about projects that are doing construction, that are going into construction next year, and of course you'll be planning now. So let us know. Typically, projects have to complete within a year of enrolling. Okay. So, Scott, do you want to talk about how, I guess, which incentives may go to entities other than the developer?
Sure. So for the performance incentive, the developer can actually assign the incentive to someone else if they want. We would just need their written permission to do so. Generally, the way things work is that the developer receives both the performance incentive as well as the incentive for the HERS rater, and then we will send the energy consultant incentive directly to the energy consultant. But if the developer wants to talk about alternative arrangements, that's certainly something we're open to.
Yes, and for the multifamily upgrade program, it's actually pretty common. Currently, or by default, the upgrade incentive and assessment incentive go to the owner, but the owner can sign the incentive over to the rater assigned to the project. So there's definitely some flexibility. Let me make sure I didn't miss anyone. I think we're really excited to have seen so many questions. I see a few folks who've raised hands. So if you would like us to answer one of your questions, please type it into the questions bar, and we'll address it that way. I think that's going to be it. Any parting words, Scott or Matthew?
All I'll say is get your projects in early, and we will be happy to talk with you if you got any weird scenarios that we didn't cover today.
Yeah, we're really happy to help you navigate through everything. So don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us during your lunch break. And you can expect an email from us shortly. Feel free to follow up with more questions. And we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Okay. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.